Welcome to the Root of It All podcast with Tree, where you will learn new habits for human betterment. We talk about all things related to personal growth, and everything is on the table. Each episode will explore different topics like self-care, mindfulness, goal setting, and more, with a focus on practical tips and actionable advice you can start implementing in your life today. Our goal is to help you become the best version of yourself and live a more meaningful life. So grab a drink, cozy up, take your dog for a walk, or go for a drive. Join us for some fun and meaningful conversations with some amazing humans. Let's grow together. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Root of It All podcast with Tree. And today I have Dan Holstein from Kaizen Performance. Did I butcher that?
Yep.
I did butcher it.
Kaizen Performance. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome. I butcher a lot of names. It's so funny because I work with like a lot of energies and stuff like that, so I end up kind of butchering names, and
It's all
as much as I try, but I am super excited for you to be on this podcast.
Yeah, me
There's
too.
so many things that we want to talk about. But first, tell people what you do.
Well, first and foremost, I'm a husband and dad, and in the business world, I'm a business coach. So I work with business owners to help them structure their businesses to work more without them, to be more profitable, and to be saleable. A lot of business owners get into business because they're really good at the thing they do in the business, and they haven't really learned all the business skills that they would really benefit from knowing. So that's kind of where I come in to help guide them and teach them and hold them to account to do the work that they really need to do to create a business that they love.
Hmm. And there's a lot of people that you work with that I know and just hold you to a very high regard, which is so cool. Yeah, yeah. Well, thank them as well. Like,
Thanks to them.
yeah. And so we want to talk about human behavior. So, and when you and I first talked about you being on this podcast, that we wanted to talk about like the biggest struggles that people have and even like a self-sabotage. Those are some of the things that we were talking about. And then, so teach us about some of the things that you notice in business owners of how that happens.
Yeah, where to start? I think we all have programming that we're running. We may not even know it, just our default behaviors, and sometimes they're not serving us well. As an example, some business owners are chronically late on getting things done, and that filters down to their team,
Mm.
right? As an example. So I think one of the hardest things for business owners, particularly, is managing change, not just in the outside world, like with their business, but with themselves. And
Mm-hmm.
the business is really a reflection of the business owner's level of thinking and decision making and action taking. So if they're not really thrilled with what's going on in the business, they have to kind of look internal
Mm-hmm.
and ask themselves, what behavior am I exhibiting or what programming am I exhibiting or running that's leading me to make the decisions I make that lead me to have the actions and outcomes that I'm creating. So
Mm-hmm.
it's sort of got to look internal. If we can't just what has the saying go? You can't get mad at the fruit. You got to work on the roots, kind of thing, right?
That's a
Of the
good,
tree.
yeah. I've
Yeah.
never heard that one. Actually,
Yeah.
that's a really, really important one. Interestingly enough, my husband and I and my best friend and her husband, we went to Portugal. And when we were in Portugal, we went to, of course, a bunch of wineries.
Right.
And we went on this tour, and they were telling us that all of these vineyards, like the actual vines, that they ended up being diseased multiple times throughout centuries.
Right.
And to your point, in terms of working on the roots, what was happening is that because it was all on like an angle, that they actually figured out that a lot of different rocks hold different heat or moisture. So they added rocks within the earth so that the roots could actually survive and not get diseased as often,
Oh, wow.
or in drought, like the rocks would hold the moisture so it wouldn't be as dry through the dry season,
Right.
or even temperature wise. So if it got too cold. So it's interesting that they've built an infrastructure in a bunch of wineries in Portugal. And I'm sure I'm butchering a little bit of the details, but for the most part, again, looking after the roots is what it is that they actually had to do, which
Yeah.
which is true for any business. So what would be the main like root part of a business?
Um, I guess the sort of the soul of the business, the root of the business is really your brand promise. It's like when someone thinks of your business, what do they expectation do they have around what's going to be like to work with you? And I think that's something that the entrepreneur really needs to hold up and not forget and not delegate.
Mm-hmm.
for somebody else to really maintain that. It's generally for a founder or an entrepreneur, it's their baby, right? And
Mm-hmm.
they really should be the one to kind of steward that. Um, and then, we have to make sure that we have proper marketing in place and have proper financial controls and cash flow management and some goals and, attraction and retention strategies for a great team as well, because you can't run a high performance company with C players, right? We need to have the A's as much as possible and then the B players that want to become A players.
Mm-hmm. And teach us about like, because this is actually a huge thing that the businesses that I work with is that trying to get either the B players to the A players or even hiring the A players. Like, is there any kind of just quick tools or tricks or something that you can ask somebody to see if they are like a C or a B or an A player so that you can really you're hiring the right type of pedigree, if you will.
Yeah, great question. So first of all, you have to know what you're looking for, right? You have to make sure that you're clear on the attributes, the abilities, the skills, the experience, the mindset, the personality style of the ideal individual. You have to kind of predefine that so that when you find that person, they tick all those boxes. Um, the second is we have to remember that recruitment is marketing. And your next A player is not going to be sitting at home on the couch wishing they had a job. They're already gainfully employed, doing a great job somewhere,
Mm-hmm.
but they'll have some level of dissatisfaction with where they are, and they might be casually looking. And if your job ad is boring like everybody else's, they're not going to notice it, right? So you really do need a standout ad, something that really grabs people's attention. That's why I say it's marketing. We've got to make sure that we're noticed, and that with the ads that I help folks create, it's around identifying what the person is that you're looking for and having that ad speak to those attributes.
Mm.
Like, we'll want to meet you if you possess these characteristics, and you'll want to meet us if you value workplace where these different criteria that would describe your workplace. And the feedback that I hear is that the ad felt like it was talking to me directly.
Mm.
And if we think about momentum and change, like, people often will stay in an uncomfortable or a bad situation just because they fear what's going to be on the other side of making a decision. So we've got that resistance to change. So if you have a really good ad, that's the first step. They'll help, it'll be noticeable, and then you have the possibility of them taking some action.
Mm.
And when you think about how much work is involved with changing jobs and much risk,
Mm-hmm.
so you've really got to have something attractive for them. And when they check you out and they look you up online, as they will, like, you have to have a business, where it seems to them from the outside that this looks like an amazing place to work.
Mm-hmm.
So to get them to pick up the phone or you know fill in an application.
Well, and it is interesting the like how prevalent online presence is. So even if somebody is looking for a new job, if somebody's online presence isn't up, even social media, then people might not be interested. Whereas like 50 years ago, you're just doing word of mouth, right? You're trusting what, oh, this guy said that it's a great place to work at, and you would just trust that. Where now people are checking into a whole bunch of different touch points when it comes to what it is that they're going to do. And I find too that even as business owners, they'll like in some people before they actually end up getting a coach or getting guidance, that they'll actually look everywhere online and then they'll end up being even more confused. Do,
Yeah.
do you do you find that get people to finally I got what I needed.
Yeah, I think too much data can be a problem. It just leads to the classic analysis paralysis where we just keep looking, and it's I think it's better to make a decision and take some action than wait. Like, you don't want to make a rash or cavalier
Mm-hmm.
decision, but gather some key data points and then go for it. Kind of think about it like if you're in a car sitting at an intersection or exit of a parking lot, and you got your foot on the brake and you're just turning the wheel like this,
Mm-hmm.
you're not going anywhere. But all you have to do is let your foot off the brake and you'll roll slowly, which is fine. You can choose a direction. If that's not the direction you want, then turn around, find
Mm-hmm.
another one. You
Mm-hmm.
can figure things out, but you don't want to be that person that's just constantly sitting there not taking any action because nothing changes then, right? You're just stuck.
Mm-hmm. And so, do you have any kind of, when we look at the future, right? Like, so a couple of companies that I'm working with or navigating, even because where I come in is I help people with the human behavior to help the people get from like the C to the B or the B to the A,
Right.
right? And I more specialize in that as opposed to doing what you do is you work with like the whole company and their finance and all kinds of stuff
Yeah.
where I'm just very niche when it comes to humans and human behavior.
Right.
And the cool thing and what we were talking about when we were on Zoom and then just like 10 minutes ago about how you're very process oriented and I'm more like I don't know, minutia oriented or like energy or I don't know. I don't want to be too foo-foo, but it's more like when I look at the person, I know that that person is totally different to any other human being. So I'm seeing like what it is that they need. And you do that to a point, but then when it comes to businesses, there's definitely strategic things, right? So you got to like flip-flop.
Yeah, I think we both need, if we want to call that like left brain, right brain, where maybe the right brain's a little bit more abstract or creative, and the left brain's a
Mm-hmm.
little bit more sequential. I think
Mm-hmm.
we need both. Like we need to have that creativity on that side. We need to have
Mm-hmm.
that sort of freedom to kind of go with the flow, but at the same time, we need our logical mind to help us make decisions. And the interesting thing about that is we always make decisions emotionally and then back them up logically,
Mm-hmm.
right? So sometimes we think that, oh, we're a super logical person, but we're all emotional human beings and we do make our decisions emotionally. Then we go into that justification mode. I mean, that's why anyone has a Ferrari, right? Like, does anyone need that as a means of conveyance? It's really nice. You don't need it per se,
Yeah.
but people, decide to have that vehicle emotionally, then justify it logically with, well, I work hard, I've saved up, and you know,
Do you have a Ferrari?
I do not.
Either do I. But yeah, it's an interesting like how people reverse engineer those things. Like they'll make that decision and then they like go back and it's really how we are as humans. Even so many people, they can do something and then talk themselves out of doing it. Even if it's a goal, if it's getting a job or anything, they can self-sabotage themselves by actually, oh, I'm not good enough, or maybe they won't hire me, or whatever would have you.
I think it's one of the biggest challenges people
Mhm.
have today is self-sabotage in terms of, I think it starts with a lot of comparison. And, with social media, and everyone living their, I call it living your life out loud, like everyone's sharing everything.
Yeah.
Well, they're sharing all the highlights, the highlight reel, right, on social.
Yeah.
And, so people can compare themselves and, make a judgment call of whether they're, ahead of that person or behind or whatever you want to call it, that comparison, which always ends up badly because you might make a decision that someone is in a better spot than you, or you might, and so you feel diminished, or you might think that you're in a better spot than them, so you diminish them. So
Hmm.
it's just, we have to recognize, I think, that everybody's on their own journey and we can't really compare ourselves to anybody else because we're not them, they're not us.
Hmm.
And I see this with business owners too, where, um, they have some competition that they're, up against and they think the competition's doing amazing and they have no idea how the competition's doing.
Mm.
Or that they think that they can't get a great team player, and then they don't try, but they probably could have if they, made an offer or, created, like we talked about before, having an online presence that's attractive to an A player and having a work environment that's attractive to an A player as well.
Hmm.
So that can be, I think, a form of self-sabotage that I see.
Yeah. And it's interesting. And when we initially spoke to just the wording that we use, like so in hypnosis and neurolinguistics, we call that ego high or ego low,
Okay.
right? And so if somebody is in kind of judgment of like, oh, I'm not good enough, or that they're, oh, I'm better, right? That it reflects on what their decisions are. And it's so interesting how people can really not gain their goal because they're indulging with the emotion that they're in, right? So if they're ego high, all of a sudden they're making all of these decisions from like an egotistical point of view, sabotaging relationships from that point, so that all of a sudden they're ego low because what goes up must come down, right? And it's from a human behavior perspective, it's like I teach a lot of people to navigate by being ego neutral, because when we're ego neutral we can catch ourselves, and if we learn tools and techniques to keep ourselves ego neutral, and it'll never be perfect ever.
It's a range, I guess, right?
Yeah, but it's understanding like what's making them want to buy the Ferrari or what's making them stay in self-sabotage in terms of beating self up in the mind in terms of judgment and stuff like that.
So that reminds me of when I've seen business owners in the past where they're sort of stuck
Hmm.
at like a particular, let's say, revenue level or size of business, and they can never seem to get past it. And one of the things that I notice about when folks are in that state, there's a belief that they're holding that's keeping them there. And I'm not sure it's
Mm-hmm.
ego high, ego low, or if it's
Yep.
neutral. But it often has to do with they don't think that they can let go. Because
Mm-hmm.
if they, it's the whole story. If I let go, and then a team member, makes a mistake, something I've delegated, they make a mistake, makes us look bad, we
Mm-hmm.
lose a client, like this whole drama trail.
Yeah.
Which reminds me, my coach, Bruce Wilson from New Zealand, has a saying that um, abundance cannot exist where there's drama or complexity. And abundance being defined as, whatever you want, whether it's free time or whether it's income or relationships, whatever the case is.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we look at that, drama being the big long story that we tell ourselves around what's going to happen, right? We
Mm-hmm.
make a dramatization. Or to the point we made earlier, where someone's getting so many data points, they make it so complex that they can't make a decision and they can't move forward
Yeah.
with what they're after as well. So it's that's interesting construct to look at is someone to stop and say, okay, where are we creating drama in our situation, whether it's business, personal, whatever, or where are we
Mm-hmm.
creating complexity, and then sort of working that back to try to eliminate it.
Mm-hmm. And gathering tools and techniques to notice when that's happening, right? Because everybody
Yeah,
can get frustrated at another human being because their values are different than the other person's, whether it's their values, beliefs, or even the attitude that's happening. That all of those go hand in hand, and it's interesting too, even as you look over time, over centuries, that the values and attitudes and beliefs of most people has changed over decade to decade. Like you think World War II versus like the 70s, right? Versus like the 80s, rock and roll, and even, well, I guess even music has changed, like, and pushed different variants of change too going through.
yeah. What's interesting about that tree is um, you think about the different genres of music over the decade defining sort
Mm-hmm.
of music, disco in the 70s and new wave in the 80s and that type of thing. People would become associated with a particular style. So you almost had like an
Yeah.
affinity with other folks that shared that same value set.
Mm-hmm.
But now it's like there's so many different, like the proliferation of different musical genres is just, it's blown up. So I wonder how that impacts people where they don't feel like they belong to a particular group,
Mm-hmm.
music wise. I mean, we're all, involved in many groups in our life,
Yeah.
but just that particular one.
Well, it was interesting because we just after we were allowed out from COVID and people were actually going back out to like bars and stuff like that. We all went out to this one. It was this one bar downtown Toronto, and there was live music, and it was interesting. Like my age demographic is like I'm gonna be 50 this year, so around there, and that's the group that I was with. And we went into this place, and there was all of these like 20 to 30-year-olds, but they were playing all the music that we grew up with.
Yeah.
So it's like over COVID, it like stopped new kind of like music, or there was more people that could only do things online. So it definitely, I believe, shifted because people were forced to find different music, and the different music was old music that they've never heard before in their generation. But it was the wildest thing to be there hearing these songs and hearing like um seeing these kids from this different demographic. It was kind of like, what's happening? Like, yeah, it was interesting, even fashion too.
Yeah. I wonder if there's any validity to two things. One, they're stuck at home with their parents, and their parents played the music they liked, and they had to listen
Mm,
to it.
could be.
Or is the other that during uncertain times, people want to go back to something that is familiar?
Mm,
Maybe they heard those songs what their parents played growing up, and it sort of gave them a sense of security, or it's just they just really like the music or something like that. Like my daughter is right into heavy metal, like 80s metal, late 70s metal. And so my wife and I, that's what we grew up on as well. And she's
mm.
picked that up from us, but now she's a bigger metalhead than we are.
That's awesome. How old's your daughter?
20.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Yeah. Do you guys
Yeah,
go to concerts together?
yeah, yeah, we do. Um, I didn't go this time, but my wife took my daughter to Metallica the other week, and yeah, I've taken her to Maiden, Iron Maiden, Judas Priest, all kinds.
The
Havoc Creator, all the good stuff.
That's awesome. The thing I love about concerts is that there's hundreds of thousands of people in the same place at the same time in the same energy,
Yeah,
which is not normal for us as human beings because we're so spread out everywhere.
yeah,
And the other interesting thing is that if you interviewed every single person at the exact same concert, you would get a different answer about how it was, what the songs were like, how it affected them, what they liked the most. And I find the whole concept of that fascinating. Like, yeah.
yeah. It is at the Metallica concert my wife went to. she's a stand up and dance kind of person, and she said hardly anyone was standing. Like to
Oh.
be Metallica, like everyone was, a lot of people were sitting. Um, so that would be definitely a
Mm.
different experience of, standing up and dancing at a show and versus just sitting there and absorbing the music. But
Which, yeah, which I find really interesting because there's a theme that just I work with individual clients as well, and a big theme that's coming through the clinic right now is people being more internal than external.
hmm,
So just sitting and listening to music, that's an internal thing. Standing up and dancing, it's an external thing,
right,
right? So it's just an interesting thing. So absolutely, with COVID, people were forced to be internal, but all the external people were outside trying to break the rules, trying to like, you know, stretch the rules so that they could be with people.
yeah.
So it's do you find with your clientele, if they are, say, more like think based, it takes them longer to get on board with change?
I, yeah, hard to say. I think it really depends on really what's going on for them in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
right? How much discomfort they have around the change, what they're making it mean. If someone's going to make a change, then they may fear being noticed for having made that change, and maybe
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be some scrutiny about the decision they made,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe a consequence around that as well. Like, what are people going to think? Is it going to lead to a reputational change or shift if this change doesn't go through? I think it's sometimes those emotional things that keep people a little bit stuck from making a decision because
Mm-hmm.
they externalize and worry about what other people are going to think about it,
Mm.
and or what their team is going to think about it, or what their spouse is going to think about it. So sometimes it's that they know what they need to do, what they want to do, what would be beneficial, but they're worried about what everyone else is going to think about it. And sometimes that's even just growing. I think it's often attributed to Nelson Mandela, but I think it's Marianne Williamson that wrote a poem called Who Am I Not to Be Great? Something like
Mm.
that, and saying that, don't be afraid to grow. You're not going to make others shrink because of your own personal growth, even though they may feel that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's more like you're giving yourself permission to shine. And I think sometimes people forget about that. Um, if you're in a growth mode, you may also have to hang out with different people
Mm-hmm.
because not everyone's it has a growth mindset. And as if you do have a growth mindset, as you grow and you notice the difference between other people with a growth mindset versus the ones that don't, you may would limit your association with the ones that don't
Mm-hmm.
because just that difference in thinking. But sometimes that person is a spouse or a relative or a former an existing friend, maybe soon to be former friend or acquaintance. So that could be pretty tough as well
Mm-hmm.
to continue on the growth path because of what you might think other people are thinking about you.
Mm-hmm.
But people aren't thinking about you that much. They're,
No.
they're worrying what you're thinking about them.
You got it. And it's interesting what it is that we can end up in fear about, right? So fear of success, fear of upsetting people or letting them down. Where the truth is, like what you mentioned, like nobody's thinking about you. Everybody's in generally like supporting you, supporting your efforts, supporting your goals, supporting whatever it is that you want to achieve as a human being.
I think sometimes that's definitely true. I think sometimes the opposite is also true. If there's somebody that wants to, let's say, start a business, they may have someone in their life that goes, "Oh, that's dangerous. You're gonna risking all
Hmm.
that money and time, and what if it doesn't work out?" Like,
Yeah.
so they're not being unsupportive. They kind of come across as being uh, cautiously trying to support you, but worrying. But so it's coming
Hmm.
from a place of fear.
Yep.
Right? They're
That's
worrying
right.
about what might happen to you as opposed to you starting a business and you're really excited about your product or service offering and adding value to the people that you serve.
Hmm.
Like that's your positive energy that's driving you.
Hmm.
But you might have someone else going, well, I don't know. I don't want you
Yeah.
to see anything bad happen to you.
That's right. And it's fascinating because we're all afraid, have our own fears because we've all experienced different things. So when we see somebody else that's doing something that we had a bad experience at, we're definitely going to jump in because we don't want them to have that same bad experience. But the chances of that happening to like two different people or like it's just it's different, right? Lots of people there have a lot more fear when it comes to taking risk. So if they see that somebody is taking like a risk, like to open your own business, some people will be like, whoa, that's like a huge risk. Where if somebody is more freedom minded, that's like, go on, right on, man. Like, do
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, it's interesting when people live from a fear base, and I guess we all do it at certain times.
Mm-hmm.
But it's, as my coach Bruce would say, like energy comes from two different places. You can have negative energy,
Mm-hmm.
or you can have positive. And positive, like, the joy and love of life. And the negative energy is fear. And there's always a cost to it. a cost to the negative energy, whether it's health or, you waste time or something like that. But it's interesting that if you take a given scenario that you might be nervous about doing something and sort of check where your energy is at. If it's coming from negativity and you could recognize that, it's like, okay, I'm feeling fearful or nervous about this scenario, this decision or this thing I'm going to do. How can you flip that to positive love and energy, like the love of life? How can you make that switch? Like, what is that experience going to, how is it going to fill you up? In other words, do that bit of exploration as opposed to staying stuck in the negativity. Not always easy to do in the moment. Sometimes it's on reflection. You kind of come up with positivity in it, but
And it's different for everybody. Like everybody has different ways of how it is that they can navigate some stuff. Like we at the Burlington Hypnosis Center, we teach people on an individual basis, like to do that. They're normally coming in for like stress management or weight loss or to quit some sort of negative habit or pattern. So we find every human is so different. Like there's not just one equation that can work for every single human being, but when the own individual human being figures out the tools and techniques that actually works for them, then it's like magical. Then they can just be like, oh, okay, I'm feeling this. Then this is what I do to get myself out of this negative mindset or whatever's happening or holding them back in some way, shape, or form.
right. And that tool might not work for somebody else, but it works for them.
You got it.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess everyone's driven by different things too, right? Like some people might be afraid to go on a boat, and others just love going on a boat, water skiing, right? It's the same experience, but two different people look at it differently, and one would have big fear, and the other would have excitement, right? And so, how could that person that would have fear have a tool to kind of put that away so they could go enjoy an afternoon on the lake with friends or something like that?
Yeah. Or some people want to go to a Metallica concert, or some people want to go and watch some jazz music on said boat. So what would be like say what would be the most in your experience, what would be the thing that could frustrate business owners the most?
Um, that's a good one. That's almost variable based on the business owner themselves, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Team often can be a source of frustration for business owner.
Mm-hmm.
And again, we think back to business owner as a founder, they started their business because they're good at the thing the business does, but probably no one ever taught them how to recruit and retain staff and train them and reward them and recognize them.
Mm.
And so you can have people that they bring on board that are okay, but make mistakes that, frustrate them. Probably staff would be the biggest frustration, if I could say across the board. Yeah, you hear a lot more complaints about staff than competition. So, but again, that's a reflection of the business owner, right? If they're not happy with their team, well, who hired them? They hired them. So
Well, or nurtured them or got them the help that they needed to learn what it is that they needed, whether it's leadership skills or sales or whatever, what have you. And it's interesting. This is kind of a question and a story that it what I find with family businesses, so generational businesses, that even like the kids that are working there, there's so much emotion and there's so many different people trying to please other people. And so say for example, there's like the kids that are running the business and the parents, they opened it like years ago, and the kids are in fear to let the parents down. They may not even be interested in the business, but it was just kind of forced upon them. They didn't even really want to work there, but they worked there like probably since they were born, right?
yeah,
And then all of a sudden, like the parents either want to retire, but the kids don't really want to hold on to the business. It's an interesting dynamics when it comes to human behavior. Also, too, if business owners say have like an employees that have worked there for a very long period of time. Like right now, I've had a couple of businesses that somebody came in and offered somebody that worked in a business for like 20 years double the salary just to move.
wow.
And the person didn't really want to go, but like, oh my gosh, how could they not?
Yeah,
Like getting
that's a tough one.
yeah. So it's interesting, like just the things that are happening in business to get like the right person for the job, like the A-level person.
I think that what most business owners miss out on is they think they'll get to it later, like in terms of any kind of succession planning. Also, they may have some ego tied up in having their kids in the business. It's like, of course, you're going to take it over. Like that's the dream that they've had since they started, that they pass on to the kids. But
Yeah.
if the kids have no interest or inclination, like if they're not good at it, if they don't have a good business mind, or it may not go well. But they the kids may still say, okay, I'll do it because they, like you mentioned earlier, they want to please mom and dad, and they're just miserable.
Yeah,
And
or in resentment, and then
yep,
like, yeah.
yeah, and then that impacts, family dynamics outside of work as well. And I think that business owners need to have, if it is family business and they want the kids to be in it, I think they have to respect if the kids don't want to be in it,
Hmm.
and think about that early and plan for that.
Hmm.
Because that would be a bit of a shock to the system if you're expecting that the kid's gonna stay on and run it, and they're like, well, I'm off for my world trip or something like that, and they don't want anything to do with the business, and then what? Some hope or belief that you've had for many, many years all of a sudden gets dashed when it could have been dealt with years prior and planned for.
Hmm.
It's the other thing too, a lot of business owners, especially family, they hang on to too much for
Hmm.
too long. And then when it is time to succeed to the kids, it's a bit of a disaster. It's sort of it's successful despite itself, but it's all the inner workings of the business are in the mind of the owner. They haven't documented things, have processes, and the kids just been doing what mom or dad or mom and dad told them to do. And they haven't actually run the business. And all of a sudden, the parent might have a health event, and yeah, it's you don't want to wait. If you have
Hmm.
family business, actually any business, you should be deciding up front at the early stages when are you going to be done, and
Hmm.
what does done look like? Because everyone's going to exit their business, whether they sell it or transition it to management buyout or to family or they pass away. Everyone's going to be out at some point. You really want
Hmm.
to have that planned out well in advance.
Well, and it's an interesting thing that, like, if people are just doing what they're told to do, they could be like, they could have done something a certain way and for years, but they didn't look at it another way. Like,
Yeah.
I love this story that, like, there's this little girl and it's Thanksgiving or Christmas, and she goes up to her mom and she goes, "Mommy, why do we put the turkey in that pan like that?" And she's like, "I don't know. Ask your grandmother." So the little girl goes up to the grandmother and she goes, "Grandma, why do we put the turkey in this pan this way?" She's like, "I don't know. Ask your great grandmother." And goes up to the great grandmother, "Why do we put the turkey in this way?" "Well, because back in the day the stoves were only this wide, and so they're still doing the exact same thing where it's like a regular oven and stuff, and nobody like would think to change anything except this like little girl just being curious.
Yeah.
So I think it's important for like business owners to be super curious when it comes to their staff, what's happening with their staff, what's happening, being curious with the industry, because a lot of people can be so stuck in their beliefs that they have blinders on to change in the society, change in their staff. Like they'll just believe that a person is a certain way and that that's the way that they are, where people totally change all the time.
Yeah, you gotta be paying attention, right? Having that situational awareness, and I'm on the board of directors of a nonprofit, and one of the things that we're noticing is that traditionally, the way our donors donated was they would mail in a check.
Hmm.
People don't mail checks anymore as
Yeah.
much. It's like the older folks that are passing away. That was their methodology, and they're not around anymore.
Hmm.
So we're having to learn how do we engage with the newer generations. Like we have to be paying attention to that. And I think that business owners should be doing that as well. Like, how is your market demographic changing, and how are you responding to that? Or
Hmm.
can you predict any of it? Like, what's the, I think one of the biggest, most important things a business owner could do is read, whether it's, or watch a business growth video or something like that, but read,
Hmm.
always keep that mindset growing and get different perspectives, even ones that you disagree with, so you can kind of sit with that and go, huh, why do I believe the way I believe when this is an interesting argument over here? Should I give that some consideration? You might learn something new that way.
Hmm.
But leaders are readers, right?
Yeah, and I would also add to that too is experiencing new things. Like I think it's important, like travel is an important thing because your
Yeah,
eyeballs are looking at something different, you're seeing different industries. Like my husband and I went to Hong Kong. Oh my gosh, efficient. Everything is like so efficient. Like as each street has all of the exact same stores. Like a street will just have all like fish tanks, everything to do with fish. Like just like as pets all down one street, and then another street would just be automotive, and then another street would be like uh fabric or whatever. And they did that so because the population is so high, so people aren't, if they're going in and out of stores to compare prices, they're just going to one section instead of
that's
having to go
interesting.
here and then to go over here to go over there. Like the efficiency was insane.
That
Even
is cool.
yeah, it was. Even we went to Starbucks and like they made the drink like really quick and then they put it in. There was like this like cover over so that if you shook it, it couldn't come out or anything. It didn't have like the usual tabs, but the whole process of Hong Kong, and I was there in like 2009, so like almost, I don't know, like 17 years ago. And they also have this thing that was called an octopus card. So it's literally just, so this is 17 years ago, right? So all the stuff that we have, like social media wasn't a thing back then, but like you had one card and you can go everywhere. Like,
Like on public transit?
yeah, you can also, yeah, any public transit. You can also go to 7-Eleven and buy a beer and walk down the street. Like, so this card, you can literally just go, and I almost think it was even before like Tap Interact.
Wow.
Like, yeah,
So
so
they're way ahead of us on that.
yeah, so I think being like a business owner and wanting growth to see different things and to be curious about what people are doing, even in other countries. Not to say that you're going to move to another country, but it's giving you even more ideas of how it is that you can create better efficiencies or processes, which which I actually and know thyself, okay? I suck at processes, but I have amazing team members that work for me that put processes in place, and and I admit sometimes I miss the process, but at least I make it funny and just totally surrender and be like, yeah, that was me.
Well, that's something I see business owners do. Even if they create the process or have a team member create it, they don't want to do it. Well, that's for you. It's not for us. I'm just going to circumvent that and do my own. That'll drive your staff nuts.
Oh, for sure, for sure. And it creates a disconnect too when it comes to communication.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people too, I find, and I don't know if you can speak to this, but there's lots of people that are literal and then people that are inferred, and I'm very inferred. Where like for example, I'm inferred, I'd be like, oh, can you go grab the laundry out of the dryer? But I'm inferring, pull it out of the dryer, fold it, and bring it upstairs. Where literally they would just take the laundry out of the dryer.
Yeah. And so on that, I think I have noticed a lot of business owners are inferred, if that's the right way to say it,
Yep. Yep.
mostly because of their pace. They're busy
Yes.
and they don't give clear enough instruction. And then they're sort of frustrated that the team didn't do exactly what they wanted. But well, the other thing too on that is levels of competence. Right,
Mhm.
the four levels of, we have unconscious incompetence where we don't know that
Yes.
we're no good because we haven't tried it. And then conscious incompetence when we try something, it's like, oh, I'm not very good at this yet.
Mhm.
But working away at it, and then we get to
Mhm.
conscious competence, and then you get to master level of unconscious competence. And I think
Mhm.
a lot of business owners are at that unconscious competence layer
Mhm.
or level, and they'll tell someone to do something and miss 20 steps because they're just inferring that the other person would know, but they
Yeah.
don't.
It's
It's funny.
I am so stoked that you described that because we actually teach that in hypnosis.
Oh, cool.
That's an actual hypnosis like terminology. Exactly
Wow.
all what you just said, and you got it bang on. Like you got it bang on. I've never seen anyone else teach it. Like that is so awesome. And you got it bang on.
I was taught it
See?
a long time ago, and I've taught it to a lot of folks too. So.
That's awesome. Yeah, but
Yeah.
it's actually a hypnosis thing.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, it's about the subconscious.
Right, right. There you go. I think that the other thing with those four levels that it can give some what's the word? I guess some context for as you're learning through something. It's like, hey, I'm new at maybe I'm learning playing an instrument and I really suck at it. And I can say, oh, I'm at conscious incompetence right now. Okay, well I know the
Mhm.
next level is conscious competence if I continue, right?
Mhm.
So I think it can remove some judgment from performance as well.
Yep.
Look at it from that context, and then recognizing that someone who is super amazing at what they do probably shouldn't be training somebody that's brand new at it,
Mm.
just because they're going to infer, like you said, so much.
Mhm.
There's an organization I was with, like a coaching organization, where if they had master coaches, and the master coaches would be maybe 5 years in, 5 to 7 years in,
Mhm.
and they would be training brand new people because it was still fresh enough for them, and they were getting to that level of unconscious competence, but not quite.
Mhm.
And so they would remember all the steps. They remember to follow the whole process,
Mhm.
and not get to that point where you're just assuming people know what you're talking about.
Mhm. Well, it's interesting that you're actually using the exact terms when it comes to hypnosis. When I'm teaching like in a business, I stay away from like those terms. So I'll say like the number one is the idea, right? You're aware that something has to change. And then the second one is like the plan. You're being curious about how it is that you're going to actually make the change. So these two things, they're actually just you're in motion,
Right.
right? And then the third one is that you're actually experiencing the plan, right? So
Yeah.
that is an action. And then the last one is that you just you're doing it and you don't even think about it, right? Like, and an example would be like, oh, I need a driver's license, right? And then the second part is like, okay, where do I get my license? How am I going to practice? Do I need lessons? Maybe you book a lesson. But the third one is that you're actually driving the vehicle. And then the last one is that you're totally like you palming the wheel, you're driving around and everything.
Texting and drinking a coffee.
You don't text and drive, do you?
No.
The main
No, I
part.
got a ticket for that when it first come out. Oh yeah.
Oh my word,
Yeah.
Dan, shame on you.
Yeah.
And but I find where people get stuck in this is in between the second and third because they'll go back to the plan because they might begin to try it or they're overthinking about actually getting in action. So in a lot of business
Yeah.
owners and people, they'll kind of psych themselves up because they won't go the extra 2 steps to experience it enough to get over to the other side.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've
Hmm.
seen something similar, and I guess the way I characterize it is if we think about beliefs, if we
Hmm.
believe we can get good at something, then we'll try it. So maybe the belief part is part of the plan, and then skills development by repetition is what has to come next. That's the doing it part, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes people, I've noticed, have a lack of confidence around being able to do the action step,
Hmm.
and so then they stay stuck. They won't move forward. That their belief is, oh, I can't, or I won't be good
Right.
at it, so that they don't want to try. So it's interesting if we have a belief that maybe just possibly I could get good at something, then you've
Hmm.
got the kernel of being able to give it a shot,
Hmm.
take that step.
And so I know there's a couple things on your mind that you wanted to talk about. Did we miss anything? Do you have
Look
anything?
at my
Look
list
at
here.
my little list.
Yeah, no, I think we did
You
we
did.
did cover it. Yeah. Um, I guess I'm curious from the hypnosis side. What is the if someone's trying to make change
Hmm.
and they come to you or one of your team for some support through hypnosis, is it something that can happen for what is the change that they're looking for or the number of sessions or what it takes? Is it depend on the type of change you're looking to make or
Yeah, it's totally unique to the person. Like, and um, it- you get to interview me. Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah, so it's very like um, people they'll set up a time and then we'll do like a free consultation and then I'll evaluate what the needs are. So it's different for everybody, right? The majority of things is very stress related, but stress is like such a broad word, right?
yeah,
Stress could be fear, stress could be self-doubt, stress could be grief, stress could be so many different things,
right,
but it's helping the person through whatever it is that they're going through, and it's different for everybody.
right,
Although when we get such to like at such a high level point, it's very much the same, but it's like going down, really seeing the person, meeting them where they're at, and then teaching them how to get out of it. And even with that process that we're talking about, it's their own journey and it's helping them through specifically that second to third piece. That's the
right.
main piece. They need to have enough practice that they can create their own bridge to get from one to the other. Because when they create it themselves, then it's a powerful thing. Then they have proof. Oh, okay, I've been here before. Maybe not the exact same thing, but that okay, yeah, I can actually get from here to there, trusting that once I get over there, that I'm just going to do it enough times that I can actually get to the outcome that I want. Yeah.
Is it accurate that if somebody if they have an external person wanting them to make a change, but
Hmm.
they themselves are like, oh, okay, I'll go and get some help, but they don't want to make the change, really.
Hmm.
Is it still possible or practical to using hypnosis? Can the person change or do they have to want it personally in order for the change to happen?
Yeah, people need to want it for
Yeah.
sure. Yeah. I've had people make appointments for their spouse or partner or whatever. Even if I were to take like a child as a client, I can take anybody from the age of 8 and up. Um, Anybody, if their parent is bringing them in and the parent is going to pay for them, I need like a signed contract with with the child and the parent that the child's going to pay the person back, even if it's with like chores or whatever it is. Because a lot of times what happens is that parents are like, oh, I'm not sure what to do or how to help. And then the child would just be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. right? Where they need some skin in the game. So I would definitely
Right.
hold accountability for that. And normally parents are just like, oh, yeah. But if the parent does get kind of upset or doesn't want to do that, then I know that it's not a good fit either,
Right.
because that means that they're just going to let the child kind of off the hook, or there's still not accountability there, which
Got
is
it. Makes sense.
unuseful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because this accountability thing is a huge thing when it comes to any kind of change, right? For specifically kids, if they get a part-time job in school, that part-time job shows them a lot. They got to show up on time. They got to learn new skills that whatever that job is. So they learn a lot of accountability when it comes to doing various things in life. And even you and I growing up, there's a huge accountability. If you wanted to go out and meet your friends, you got to figure out the bus schedule. The bus schedules, you have to go walk to the bus stop. Like there's no like checking it out online. Maybe you had to figure out where the bus schedule was and figure out the bus schedule, but you had to navigate all of these things, where now it's just like a click of a finger and there's an answer.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah, you had to get out in the world, and nowadays you
Mhm.
don't really as much have to get out in the world. You can stay locked away on a screen and just, you know, it's like people at concerts watching the concert through their phone.
Yeah.
Like you're there, just be there.
Yeah,
Be
yeah.
there and
It's like,
and I wonder how many people when they get home do they really rewatch all those songs again on their phone, or is it just taking up space?
yeah. Well, and I find there's different layers to our nervous system. The fact that like first we have our one track, could be like our own, our values, attitudes, and beliefs. We also all have a backtrack. That backtrack is that of our worst critic growing up, right? So that's a little bit of our nervous system. But now with social media, there's this other layer of like, what am I going to show the public?
Yeah.
How do I want people to see me? What am I going to show online? So I think in the moment, people are in the mood and just like, oh my God, this would be so amazing to post online. But yeah, you're right. Half the time they probably don't go and post or whatever.
Yeah, I wonder. It'd be interesting to, if there's actually a stat on that. And on social media, I don't know if you'll find this interesting. I quit social media like 2.5 years ago. I got off of Twitter and Facebook altogether. It was after reading a book called The Antidote by Oliver Berkman.
Mm-hmm.
And in that book, he's sort of talking about, you might think that you're on social media for 10 minutes, which is true, but
Mm-hmm.
it's the inputs that you just onboarded, the content and what it does to your thinking that,
Yeah.
permeates the rest of your day.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that, because I like airplanes, I was mostly like on Twitter is all aviation stuff. It's all really interesting and technical, and but somehow some political stuff got in there and just flooded it.
Mm.
And it's like, yeah, I don't really want to be watching people argue back and forth. So I'm like, and just taking a break from it. And it was interesting. At first, I thought, oh, I wonder if I'll have any trouble, because it's a habit, right? You grab a
Mm-hmm.
coffee and you look on Facebook or look on Twitter, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But it was fine. I just let it go and didn't miss it. And I still have, accounts that we post for business stuff, but I don't do the posting.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just sort of this one less potentially negative input during the day. I think we have to be, if we think about time management, like that's been such a big deal, time management. But yes,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's energy management. It's the energy that we put into the time that we have to manage well.
Mm-hmm.
And if we have negative inputs coming at us, I think it's a net energy drain or a shift in that energy that we have to be
Mm-hmm.
really careful to steward and protect. It's all we've got to put in our day, right?
Mm-hmm. When you look at the kids that are growing up with it, and they're like constantly looking at like how many likes or how many shares or whatever the terminology is, that it's not a good way of how to really judge yourself of how well of a human being that you are,
Yeah,
just
exactly.
because of likes. Which, yeah, I totally agree. I don't know if I forget what show it was. It might have been like Black Mirror, and they have all these like little segments of shows. But there was this one episode, and it was all about like everyone went everywhere, and you had your phone, and you would literally rate the person in front of you. So you got, so say you got a coffee, like you rated the person, oh thanks, and you literally swiped on your phone and it rated the person. And this one girl that was the main character, that all of a sudden she did something, got a bad rating, and she got banished from going to a wedding, because nobody that had like under like a 3.5 star could go to like this wedding, which is so. I loved kind of like the tongue in cheek of it, because it was, in, I mean, it was comedy for the most part, because she was just trying to like, oh, please up my rating, because she had to go to this wedding. Like,
Oh my gosh. But
so
it's a great extrapolation though of the dependence
mhm.
people have on those likes and shares and all that kind of stuff, which like you said, doesn't define who you are.
Nope, no. So what do you want to leave people with? To we're
Um,
gonna have all of your information and stuff if people want to contact you, but like what would be like just a nugget from Dan?
hmm, no
A
pressure.
Dan nugget.
There we
I
go.
love it. Yeah.
Um, I would say if there's something that you need, go and give it to somebody else. Like I say, if you feel like you're lacking confidence, go find someone that you can add some confidence to. Maybe go help
Mm-hmm.
somebody. I think it gets reflected back. There's sort of a
Mm-hmm.
universal law of reciprocity, that's out there. So just yeah, I think that would be one. The other would be you mentioned about inner critic, your worst critic growing up.
Mm-hmm.
I would give some consideration to if you do engage with some of the thoughts around having that critic, whoever it might have been in your life.
Mm-hmm.
Recognize it was never about you. It was always about them.
Yep.
And they became that way because of someone else that was their inner critic that
Yep.
made it, that was all about them again. So the whole cascade. So I think sometimes when we have those critical thoughts, where they come from may have no basis in our own reality.
Mm-hmm.
So we sort of, it's not about us. So maybe that's the nugget.
Yeah, I love that. And the thing is too, it's great that there's like people like yourself and myself that can help people move through this as well, right? Because to just say, oh, just get rid of it, but there's lots of amazing things that you do to help people out. So thank you so much for your time and generosity to share your time with
I'm very
me.
happy to. I was looking
Yeah.
forward to it. So yeah, thank you,
Yeah.
Tree.
Well, folks, that's a wrap for today's episode of The Root of It All with Tree. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. But before we go, I just wanted to remind you that you can follow us on social media. You can find us on Facebook or Instagram. And we will be posting motivational quotes and behind the scenes content that you won't want to miss. You can always sign up to come live while we're filming this, or even join us online through Zoom. We always offer open question and answer after each episode that we don't record, so it's all private, but you can get more involved. So sign up for free at businessgrowthresults.com, and we're going to cover all kinds of different topics that you're not going to want to miss. And if you're